Of the near 200 global video interviews I've hosted since the start of 2020, the majority of them, somehow, somewhere, during the interview, touch upon the need for good leadership. Now, it may be remote leadership, change leadership, sales leadership. It may be the conscious leader, the hybrid leader, the innovative leader, or our show, the achiever leader. But leadership is always to the fore. The challenge is that most people have differing views on leadership, especially in our new normal, new society. So what better way to get some clarity than to visit a long-term friend of mine? Yes, I've got one for all you doubters. He's the CEO of the Institute of Leadership and Management. Welcome, John Mark Williams.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's great to be here on the show.
Wherever I am, John, in the world, on our BVTV segment, it seems that people are constant in their thinking that leadership needs to change to meet the new normal needs. Is that fundamentally true, or is it just what we may call cosmetic changes that are needed?
I think it's definitely fundamental, Malcolm, because what's happening now, I was talking about this the other day to somebody and he said it's a paradigm shift. And I said, actually, it's not a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift is when things remain the same and we look at them a different way. Actually, everything has changed. Everything has changed. And I think, so we're looking at things a different way, but it's because they are different. So I think the basic principles of leadership, however, remain the same. And if I might use another analogy, if we imagine that tomorrow the government has told us we're all going to move to driving on the right-hand side of the road. Okay, for a while there would be total chaos. All the cars are made to drive on the other side of the road. People wouldn't be used to it. Roundabouts go the wrong way, etc. However, the fundamental principles of driving would not change at all. So this is a little bit like what's happened now in business and organizations. So it's not the cosmetic, actually all the business models and everything have changed, but those core fundamentals of leadership still remain the same.
I love that analogy about driving on the other side of the road, John.
Yes, I can imagine it, actually. It would be quite entertaining.
Listen, where I live up here is chaos on either side. No, sadly, redundancies around the world are happening, which means there's a surplus of talent chasing too few jobs. Companies have choice from a wide range of candidates with a wide range of qualifications. So how important is an institute qualification in such circumstances? Does it translate well across the world?
The short answer is yes. And I think that's the answer that applies to any quality qualification, really, because from the individual's perspective, what they're really looking for is to be able to validate their capabilities and their competencies, and to be able to display that to potential employers or partners in business. From the employer's or business point of view, what they're looking for is to be able to have confidence in the competencies of people that they are recruiting or employing or engaging. So a qualification, and the Institute qualifications I would obviously number amongst these, a high quality qualification is a demonstration and display of competencies and capabilities. What I would say also, because we're talking about leadership, is, excuse me, from an individual's point of view, very important to seek qualifications in leadership, because the characteristics of leadership, and I'm sure that we'll talk about those in just a second, are the sort of characteristics which are increasingly needed now, less so the operational and mechanical characteristics in organizations. So being able to learn and then display the characteristic competencies of leadership as in a strategic sense will be increasingly important for people who are seeking future employment.
I'm totally with you on that one. Now, the US Army says there are 32 traits of a good leader, which to me is far too many. You know, if you imagine I've got to tick them off before I go to war. What does the Institute think are the essential traits of a good leader?
Well, I have to say 32 is quite challenging, to be perfectly honest, and I'm not sure that I would be able to achieve all of them. But we have 5 core dimensions of leadership, which we think if people are able to perform, if I can say that, not just adequately but effectively in these 5 dimensions, then actually their leadership will probably be effective. And those 5 dimensions are achievement, because of course one of the reasons why we give people a leadership position is so that they can help us to achieve results. So achievement, ownership, so accountability, a willingness to take ownership of responsibility for the results, collaboration, because actually none of us is capable of achieving great things without working with everybody else, and vision, because without that vision and also the ability to portray that vision and share that vision with others. So achievement, ownership, collaboration, and vision. And at the heart of those is this very interesting word, authenticity, which sort of became popular a few years ago. And I have to admit, when I first heard the word, I thought, I hate that. It's just buzzword rubbish. Actually, of course, it means something very, very important. And authenticity in leadership means being honest with oneself as well as with everybody else about one's capabilities, and being able to say, actually, you know what, I'm not sure. And therefore owning the uncertainty, being able to collaborate with other people to actually overcome that uncertainty, being able to say, I have a vision, let's talk about whether or not it's the right one, and thereby achieving what the organization wants. So those 5 dimensions: achievement, ownership, collaboration, vision, and authenticity.
That's really, really interesting about authenticity, because that started coming through just recently in many of the CEO interviews I've been doing, because they're having to be visible, and being visible on things like Zoom and everything is a little bit of a struggle for some of them, because the authenticity has to come through, as you say, quite strongly. Now, John, in a recent interview I held in USA with renowned futurist Rebecca D. Costa, she said, and in her book On the Verge, that today's leaders need to learn agility and adaptation, but to forget trying to do it fast, they need to learn pre-adaptation. Now, that seems sensible. If you know it's going to happen, why wait until it does? That's it, to do it well before it happens. So how can institute learning help leaders not only grasp this concept, but also implement it?
It's a great concept, actually, and it's a really good question, because we have, even in the rapidly growing world of agile and agility, which has become very, very popular, particularly in the current climate, because we are all forced to be agile in our behavior and our organizations, whether we like it or not at the moment. Even in that arena, we're still focused on what is agility. It means to be able to sense and respond rapidly. Interestingly, exactly as Rebecca says, there is a further dimension, and I often describe this as moving on from sense and respond to being able to predict and prepare. And if I use an analogy, I think there was a piece of research done on fighter pilots, and it was testing their reaction times in a dogfight. So 2 planes, one after the other, trying to shoot each other down and stuff like this. And they were testing, the plane in front makes an evasive maneuver. What's the reaction time of the plane behind to follow them? And they discovered negative reaction times. And you think, how is that even possible? It can't be possible. Of course, what happens is those 2 pilots, actually, the planes they're flying are almost identical in terms of capability. Their skills are almost identical. So each of them knows what the other pilot is capable of, and also knows if that pilot does this, then actually their next maneuver is going to be that. So I'll do that first. And if we think about it, we do the same. If we are drivers, we do the same when we are driving a car. We subliminally predict from all sorts of strange and subconscious signals what the drivers in front are going to do. If we can translate that to organizations and say, how do we get not years in front, but how do we get just marginally in front of what the market is going to do, then we can have a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
The way we do that is data. And this is where things like analytics, predictive and advanced analytics, can help organizations not just interpret what is now, but actually predict for the future and prepare for it.
Excellent. Yes. Now, tomorrow's business leaders, likely sitting at a home desk or tucked away in a socially distant corner of the office at the moment, an empty office probably. I'm suggesting that the current workplace environment may be impacting succession planning and that those leaders of tomorrow are not being identified or getting the grounding they need for the future. What do you urge employers to do about this, if you think I may be right?
I think you're absolutely right, Malcolm. And the answer is two things, really. First, I would urge employers to open their eyes to what's going on in their organizations. And secondly, to open their minds to what those things are telling them. Because what we've seen and the pandemic has been almost an opportunity for this to happen. Leadership, by which I mean the ability to take control of situations, to analyze them, to respond, and maybe to predict, all of those leadership competencies have emerged in every single level of every organization. And we see a constant stream of reports and stories in the media and on social media of how people at what used to be called operational level have taken command of a situation and satisfied customers as a result. That's leadership. Now, what employers, and I'm talking about management and leadership in employers, what they can usefully do is, first of all, open their eyes to where that is happening in their organization, and then open their minds to what do we actually do with this newly released talent? Because there is leadership capability at every level in organizations, and the future of work and organizational behavior demands that all of those potential leaders are given the opportunity to display that leadership.
Brilliant. Now, before I move on to my last question, I just want to remind viewers that behind me on the screen, John's URL, so pop along and have a look around there to see what the Institute is offering to help you move forward. John, sadly no pantomime this year, but I like to give all my guests 3 wishes. How would you use your 3 wishes to help leaders of today become better leaders?
Right. Okay. I think I'd wish for 3 things, really. The first thing is I'd wish for leaders and future leaders to have an understanding of what really motivates people, so that we move to a future of work where we get commitment, not just compliance. So the second wish would be for future leaders. Having said that, future leaders to have a recognition that people need challenge as well as support, because without being challenged and supported, people become disillusioned, apathetic, cynical, whatever. The ability to challenge somebody and make sure they feel supported is something very powerful in generating performance. So I would wish for future leaders to be able to do that. And then the last thing, I guess, is the third wish. I'd wish for future leaders to be rewarding people for the quality of their contributions, not just for time served or because they happen to be in the same club or whatever, to recognize the quality of contribution, particularly in light of this leadership emerging from everywhere in the organization, because there are many people who are doing great things in organizations who are unrewarded, and I would wish for future leaders to reward that.
John, those were 3 fabulous wishes. John Mark Williams, CEO of the Institute of Leadership and Management, thank you for a stimulating interview.
Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity, Malcolm. Great to have been here.